This is your Dune read-along book. Every time you hear this chime, it means it's time to turn the page in your storybook. Now, if you are ready, we will start Dune, Part 1. Battle for the Known Universe. Don't forget to turn the page every time you hear the chime. In the far reaches of the known universe lies the planet Dune. Its surface is one vast desert. Only on Dune is a spice produced that is so important, powerful rulers fight over who shall control it. That spice, called melange, gives people the power to see into the future and to control travel through space and time. Far across the galaxy from Dune lies the planet Caladan. For many years, its ruling family, the Atreides, had been at war with the evil Harkonnen family from the planet Piedi Prime. Inside the training room of the Castle Caladan, young Paul Atreides, son of Duke Leto Atreides, prepared for combat. Today, he was to practice once again with a new secret weapon. With him were three of his father's closest advisors, Dr. Yue, Gurney Halleck, and Thufir Hawat. Thufir asked the boy,
"Are you ready to continue your training?"
"I am ready,"
Paul answered. Gurney Halleck, the weapons expert, ordered the guards to start the fighter robot. Then he turned to Paul.
"Tomorrow we go to Dune. You must be prepared. Dune is dangerous, and so are our enemies, the Harkonnen."
Dr. Yue placed a special collar around Paul's neck. At the front was a box, the new secret weapon, a weirding module. Hanging from the ceiling before him was a fighter robot. It started spinning, its sharp knives and spines whirring with deadly menace. Paul circled the robot with caution, leaping back as it tried to cut him to pieces. Then, suddenly, Paul charged it, shouting. The weirding module on his neck amplified his yell into a terrible roar that caused parts of the robot to burst into flames.
"Perfect,"
Gurney whispered to Dr. Yue. The physician nodded.
"Paul is special. The best student we have ever taught."
"He will need every skill he has learned when he gets to Dune,"
Thufir added. Life in the galaxy had evolved in many strange ways. One of the strangest was the third stage navigator, a gigantic, flesh-toned grasshopper-like creature who floated in a glass tank filled with orange spice gas. The navigator had evolved from a human being over thousands of years. He was smarter than most humans, but he was also very dangerous because he could read men's thoughts. The navigator had come to a secret meeting with Emperor Shaddam IV, the cruel ruler of the known universe. Speaking through a translator machine that changed his thoughts into words, the navigator told Shaddam,
"I know of your scheme to defeat the Atreides. You have ordered Duke Leto Atreides and his family to Dune to take over the spice mining. The Harkonnen will pretend to give up and leave, but then return and destroy the Atreides. It is a clever scheme, but if you want our support, you must kill the Duke's son, Paul."
Meanwhile, on Caladan, Paul was waking from a tortured sleep, filled with dreams of Dune. Two women were standing in his doorway, his mother, the elegant Lady Jessica, and an old woman with metal teeth and a shaved head covered by a long black headdress. The old woman whispered to his mother,
"You were ordered to give birth to a daughter to be our future leader, but you disobeyed and had a son. Our ancient religious order of Bene Gesserit women have used the spice melange to look into the future and alter history. You should not have changed that."
As Paul sat up, his mother explained.
Paul, this is the Reverend Mother Mohiam.
You are my mother's Bene Gesserit teacher?
Paul asked the woman. The Reverend Mother nodded, then ordered,
Come here.
She used the voice, a Bene Gesserit power that forced the listener to follow her commands.
Put your hand inside this box.
What's in it?
Pain.
Paul pulled back his hand.
Put your hand inside.
Paul obeyed, grimacing as the pain grew worse. But he did not pull his hand away.
Enough,
said the Reverend Mother. Paul removed his hand and stared at it in amazement.
Why, there's not even a mark on it.
You have passed the test of courage. Perhaps you will be the first Messiah foretold by our Bene Gesserit prophecies.
Light years from Caladan was the planet Yeti Prime. Most of the surface of that dark and deadly place was covered with a sea of oil. The Harkonnen cities floated on that black ooze in huge steel boxes, hundreds of stories tall. Inside his green-tiled chambers, the evil Baron Harkonnen floated freely in the air. He was so fat, he wore special anti-gravity suspensors that kept his swollen body afloat, so he no longer had to walk anywhere. The Baron was overjoyed as he boasted of his plans to destroy the Atreides on Dune.
I have forced one of the Duke's most trusted advisors to betray him. My plan cannot fail.
At that moment, Paul looked out the window of his family's spaceship as it lifted off the surface of Caladan. With it were over 4,000 Atreides spaceships, all headed toward the Guild Highliner, a cargo ship so huge that all the Atreides ships would only be part of its cargo.
I will miss Caladan.
Paul thought sadly.
I fear that dangerous times are ahead.
Once the Highliner was loaded, the third stage navigator took control. He entered a huge map of the galaxy and, with the strange power of the spice melange, he folded space. He changed the position of the planets so that Dune was now below them and Caladan was light years away. Paul felt his heart beat faster as the Atreides ships left the Highliner and headed down toward the sandy surface of Dune. As Paul and his family arrived at Arakeen Palace, their new home, they were greeted by crowds of happy people.
See how they cheer for us and our soldiers, Father.
Paul said.
Not for us.
Explained Duke Leto.
They cheer because the cruel Harkonnen rulers are gone. Prove ourselves better rulers before they cheer for us.
When Paul reached his bedroom, all he could think about was sleep after that long day. As he approached the bed, a poisoned hunter-seeker dart floated silently out of the headboard. Paul stopped in his tracks, knowing that the dart headed toward any movement and attacked. Paul said quietly,
If I move, I'm dead. I must not move until I can grab the hunter-seeker and destroy it.
Just then, the door opened, and Shadout Mapes, a Fremen housekeeper, entered. The dart streaked past Paul toward her. Paul lunged at it, grabbed it, and smashed it against the wall next to the door. Shadout approached Paul and shakily whispered,
I would be dead if not for you, my lord. I must repay the debt by telling you that there is a traitor in your house.
The following morning, Paul and his father flew from the palace in an ornithopter to inspect the spice mining operations in the deep desert.
Will we see any sandworms?
Asked Paul.
Of course.
The ornithopter pilot answered.
The worms defend the spice, and they do not give it up willingly.
Look!
Shouted Paul, pointing.
See how the sand ripples.
A worm is coming. I'll radio for a carryall to come and lift the harvester and his workers to safety.
But as long moments passed and the sandworm grew nearer, the rescue craft failed to arrive.
The Baron must have sabotaged my transmission,
shouted Leduc.
We must rescue the workers ourselves.
The ornithopter dropped close to the sand, and the workers ran from the harvester and jumped on board just as the sandworm surfaced. It opened its gigantic mouth and, with its huge teeth glistening, swallowed the entire harvester. Later, safely back at the palace, the Duke walked through the corridors, checking security and talking to his men. In one darkened hallway, he suddenly came upon the moaning, half-conscious form of a Fremen servant on the floor. It was Shadout Mapes. She had been stabbed. Duke Leto kneeled beside her and asked,
"Who did this?"
But before she could answer, she died. At that moment, the Duke heard the engines of the palace's shield generator slow down, then stop.
The generator. The force field that protects the palace has been sabotaged.
He cried out. As he brought his arm up to activate his own body shield, a drugged dart struck him, sending him sprawling to the floor, paralyzed. Leaning against the wall, unable to move, the Duke saw Dr. Yue standing over him.
So, you're the traitor,
he gasped.
You, my friend, my physician.
Why?
Because Baron Harkonnen forced me to.
Dr. Yue answered.
My wife is his prisoner, so I am forced to do his bidding. But we can both revenge ourselves, my lord, and at least save your wife and son.
How? Dr. Yue held out a poisoned tooth.
With this, put it in your mouth, and when the Baron leans close to you to enjoy his triumph, bite down on the tooth. A poison gas will be released, killing you both.
The Duke nodded, and Dr. Yue placed the tooth in his mouth. Yue then took the family ring from the Duke's finger.
For the new Duke,
he said.
For your son, Paul.
By now, the Harkonnen ships were on the ground, and the soldiers were inside the palace. Soon, the palace was in flames. The Duke lay dying and could not prevent Baron Harkonnen from taking Paul and Lady Jessica captive.
Take them into the desert,
hissed one of the Baron's evil assistants.
The sandworms will make sure their bodies are never found.
The ornithopter carrying the prisoners streaked over the vast wasteland of the Dune Desert. Lady Jessica had been gagged, so she would not be able to use Bene Gesserit's skill, the voice, to order either of the guards to release them. But Lady Jessica had been teaching Paul her skill, and he decided the time had come for him to try it.
Release my mother's gag!
The voice's strength filled the spacecraft. The guard untied the gag, then attacked and killed the ornithopter pilot.
Untie my son!
Lady Jessica ordered. The guard did as he was told. Paul immediately overpowered him, then attempted to gain control of the thopter. Despite his efforts, the ornithopter crash-landed in the deep desert of Dune. Before leaving the ship, Paul pulled the survival box out from under a seat. When he discovered Dr. Yue's belongings inside, he understood.
So, Dr. Yue is the traitor. He shall pay for it.
Then Paul found his father's ring and suspected the worst.
We must get out of here.
Tears filled Lady Jessica's eyes, for she knew that her husband was dead, that he would never see the unborn child she was carrying. Back in the palace, the glow of the flames flickered across the Baron's evil face as he leaned over the body of the dying Duke.
So, my arch-enemy now lies helpless at my feet. You shall die soon, Duke Leto Atreides.
The Baron looked over at the shame-ridden face of Dr. Yue.
And you traitor, you shall join your wife in death.
The shame on Yue's face turned to shock as he felt a knife being driven deep between his shoulder blades by the Baron's evil assistant. Turning back to Leto and leaning close, the Baron snarled.
I want your ducal signet ring so I can rule your people. Where is it?
Come closer, and
I will tell you,
gasped the Duke.
I can't make out what he is mumbling.
Complained the Baron to his assistant.
See if you can.
As the assistant leaned over, the Duke bit down on the poisoned tooth, killing them both instantly. The Duke's revenge has missed its mark. This time. The moment that Duke Leto Atreides took his last breath, his wife and son were preparing to run for their lives across the desert. They knew that the sounds of their footsteps would bring the dreaded sandworms. As his mother wept, Paul took his father's ring and slipped it on his finger. With tears streaming down his cheeks, he cried,
Father! Father! I am Duke now. Am I ready for it? Am I ready for it?
But there was no answer. Only the echo of his voice in the cold desert night. Paul and his mother had escaped with their lives from the clutches of the evil Baron Harkonnen. Would the vast desert lead them to safety? Or did the gigantic sandworms have another fate in store for them?
This is your Dune read-along book. Every time you hear this chime, it means it's time to turn the page in your storybook. Now, if you are ready, we will start Dune, Part 2, Attack of the Giant Sandworms. Don't forget to turn the page every time you hear the chime. It seemed to Paul and Lady Jessica that things could get no worse on the planet Dune. Duke Leto, his father and her husband, had been killed by the evil Baron Harkonnen. And now, mother and son were stranded in the desert, wandering toward safety or toward death. As they looked out over the sand, Paul pointed to a rocky cliff in the distance.
We'll be safe up there,
he said.
But if we journey over the dunes, the sandworms will surely devour us.
Part of their survival gear included a thumper, a machine which beat on the sand and drew the attention of the sandworms. Paul set the thumper in motion behind them, and he and his mother hurried away from it over the slippery sand. They had gone only partway toward the cliff when they heard the hissing of a sandworm. The sand began to shake under their feet. Moments later, the thumper stopped.
Run, Mother!
Shouted Paul as a hill of moving sand chased them.
Run, or we're doomed!
With only seconds to spare, Paul and Jessica reached the rocky cliffs just as the huge worm burst through the sand and began swallowing the rocks below them. The gigantic worm continued to smash its head against the cliff, desperately trying to reach Paul and Jessica before they climbed to safety on the higher cliffs. Just as they reached a high bluff and safety, a bolt of lightning lit up the cliff, exposing a large band of Fremen, Dune's people. The Fremen studied Paul and Jessica, trying to decide if they would be useful to them. Finally, Stilgar, the leader, spoke.
The boy goes with us, but the woman will use too much water in the desert. She must die.
With that, he drew his knife and turned on Lady Jessica.
Stop!
Jessica commanded. The voice froze Stilgar in his tracks.
Leave them alone,
he ordered.
She's a Bene Gesserit. Her power will kill me.
Chani, a lovely Fremen girl, approached Paul.
What are you called?
She asked.
Paul is the name my father gave me.
You must have a Fremen name as well. We shall call you Paul Muad'Dib.
Stilgar and the Fremen led Paul and Jessica across the desert, traveling a night and a day, until they reached Sietch Tabr, their hidden underground fortress. Climbing down the deep, dark steps, they finally came to a huge black lake.
This is only one of thousands of lakes we possess on Dune,
explained Stilgar.
Soon, all this precious water will transform our desert world into a paradise.
Weeks passed. Paul and Jessica were becoming more comfortable in the Fremen world. The Fremen, in turn, were beginning to look upon Paul as their new leader, the one their legend predicted would come from another world to lead them against the cruel Harkonnen. Standing on a rock ledge in the Fremen Hall of Rites, Paul spoke to the assembled thousands of Fremen.
We must destroy the Harkonnen and make Dune ours again. To do this, we must control the spice melange. The Baron and the Emperor himself need the spice and will have to come to us for it. We will be ready for them when they do.
How, Muad'Dib?
Asked Stilgar.
We will need special weapons to fight such evil.
I have such a weapon.
Paul held up a weirding module, the special voice box which he had used on Caladan, and which he had rebuilt for the Fremen.
We will build more of these. I will teach you to use them. Then we will be prepared.
How does it work?
Paul chose a Fremen from the crowd and pointed to a nearby pillar.
Yell at that rock,
he commanded.
Ah!
The man yelled, but nothing happened. The other Fremen laughed. Then Paul placed the weirding module on his neck, turned toward the rock, and shouted, The stone burst into 1,000 pieces with sudden explosive force.
We must act until no evil Harkonnen are left,
Paul cried out.
I will lead you, and we will become a vast army, ready to take back our world of Dune.
Months passed, during which the Fremen armies kept up their attacks. During this time, Paul's eyes had turned completely blue, like the Fremen's, from Dune's spice, melange. Then one day, Jessica gave birth to a baby girl, Alia, who was born with all her mother's Bene Gesserit knowledge and skills. Although Paul was now accepted as the Fremen leader, one test remained as final proof, a test of courage and skill. He had to ride a sandworm. Paul went out into the desert, set out a thumper to attract a sandworm, and waited, alone on a dune. Soon, he heard the roar of the approaching worm. He stood frozen, holding a maker in his hands, and waited. Suddenly, with a deafening noise, the worm burst up out of the sand. It was huge, over 100 feet tall. Thousands of teeth glistened in the 80-foot circle of its mouth. Paul ran beside the sandworm and quickly hooked himself on its writhing, bucking body. The worm turned its body upward to keep the sand from hurting its exposed flesh. Then, in one swift motion, Paul planted more hooks in its breathing holes.
I've conquered it! Now I'm a sand rider!
He yelled proudly. Months became years. The sands on the planet Dune shifted in the wind. Paul grew into manhood as the Fremen's fearless leader. He continued leading his troops in raids on the Harkonnen spice mining operations. The Harkonnen losses of spice and equipment were piling up, and the Baron's nephew feared he could no longer hide them from his uncle. He screamed with rage.
I will find this Muad'Dib and suck the blood from him!
Millions of light years away, on the far side of the galaxy, Emperor Shaddam IV paced nervously in his golden room. The reason for his nervousness suddenly appeared before him. It was a first-stage navigator who had not yet changed into a third-stage navigator. The first-stage navigator's raspy voice filled the air.
Emperor Shaddam, you have failed miserably. This poor Muad'Dib, whoever he is, still lives. The spices of Dune are in danger from his Fremen armies, and you and that bungling Baron Harkonnen are responsible. You must remedy this situation.
Muad'Dib is clever, but I will mount a full-scale attack,
promised the Emperor.
I will activate every legion I have and send them to Dune immediately. I will attack and destroy the Fremen rabble, and this new leader of theirs as well.
Paul knew that if he was to help the Fremen in their final battle against the Harkonnen and the Emperor,
He would need great wisdom. He would need to see the future. The only way he could do that was by drinking the mysterious, all-powerful water of life. Johnny, who had fallen in love with Paul, begged him not to.
Please, Paul, the water could kill you, for no man who has taken it has lived.
I have no choice, my love. It is my destiny.
So Johnny went with Paul and his Fremen warriors out into the desert. There, he drank the water of life. Paul screamed as 1,000 horrors filled his mind, but he finally awakened from his nightmare, having seen the future. Returning to the Fremen, Paul announced,
"The time of the final battle has come. I know a secret our enemies do not. I know how to destroy all spice forever, and I can now fold space as well. Now our enemies will fear me. Our time has come."
Paul and his Fremen warrior aides stood at the top of a rise, studying the Arakeen Palace and its defenses. They had been watching for days now, and waiting. They had watched as the Emperor's forces landed, and watched as his steel tent extended down below his own ship, serving as his palace and protective cover.
"Now is the time to begin,"
Paul said evenly, studying the sky.
"A sandstorm is developing, as planned. Larger and more fierce than anything ever known before. And what about the sandworms?"
They are on their way, Muad'Dib.
A Fremen responded.
We have put out thousands of thumpers to attract them. Just listen.
It was true. Their thumping roared across the desert like thunder.
"This will be a gathering of worms the likes of which no one has ever seen before,"
Paul exclaimed. And so it was. The desert sand rose like ocean waves as hundreds of worms approached. Waiting to ride them, hooks ready, were the Fremen warriors. Meanwhile, at the Arakeen Palace, Baron Harkonnen was ordered to rush to Shaddam's tent. The Emperor was angry.
Your mistakes forced me to come here. Your cruel treatment of the people on Dune has caused a rebellion among the Fremen.
At that moment, a small girl in long black robes entered. It was Alia, Paul's sister. Alia announced,
I am the messenger from Muad'Dib, Paul Muad'Dib, who is really Paul Atreides.
Before the Emperor and the Baron could get over their shock, loud explosions were heard outside the tent. Paul and the Fremen had begun their attack. Enraged, the Baron grabbed for Alia, but she jabbed a poisoned needle into his face, crying,
Here is the revenge of the Atreides family!
The Baron gasped and died as another huge explosion burst open the steel wall of the Emperor's tent. Harkonnen's fat body, which was floating in midair, was sucked out of the hole in the wall, only to be swallowed by one of the attacking sandworms.
They've broken through the outer shield wall!
Shaddam shouted in panic.
I am under attack!
Quickly, Your Majesty! Into your ship for safety!
Yelled the captain of his personal guard. Alia laughed as she ducked out, escaping into the confusion of the battle raging around the Arakeen Palace. Thousands of explosions illuminated the sandstorm as it swirled over everything. And out of the darkness came the Fremen Sandriders, hundreds mounted on each worm. The sandworms and their riders poured through the broken shield wall and scattered the terrified legions of the Emperor. Most of the troops were either swallowed or crushed by the sandworms, and those that were left met their fate at the hands of the Fremen warriors. When the victorious Fremen entered Arakeen Palace, Paul ordered his prisoners brought before him. Paul leveled his gaze at the defeated Emperor.
I have true power now,
he said.
I can destroy all the spice which gave you and the Bene Gesserit your special powers.
How dare you speak to me that way?
Retorted the Emperor. Then turning to Fade, the Baron's evil nephew, Shaddam said,
Here, Fade, take my knife and fight this Paul Atreides.
Thade took the Emperor's knife and stepped forward, opposite Paul. The two began to circle each other, each looking for a weakness in the other. Soon, they were rolling on the floor, grappling, each with a knife seeking the other's throat. Suddenly, Thade shifted his body and lifted his leg.
Muad'Dib!
Johnny screamed.
He has a poison dart hidden on his leg!
Just as the dart was about to plunge into Paul, he flung his body to one side, and, in the same movement, his own knife found Thade's throat. Paul rose to his feet, triumphant. Throwing down his knife, he announced,
I no longer need a knife or a weirding module, for I now can kill with a word.
The Fremen chanted.
Oh, Muad'Dib, you are truly the leader our legend promised us.
Shani exclaimed. Paul's blue eyes shone. There would be justice and peace in the known universe at last. Suddenly, a downpour of rain, life-giving, life-sustaining rain, began to fall on Dune. And gathered outside the palace walls, jubilant Fremen raised their voices as one, in triumph.
Story of a Reed, A Long Book of Dune 2. Prologue, A New Era. The sands of Arrakis whispered a new prophecy. Paul Atreides, the Kwisatz Haderach, the right hand of God, had conquered the known universe, his reign a whirlwind of both terrifying power and unexpected benevolence. Yet even gods must fall. His legacy, a fractured imperium, was about to be engulfed in a firestorm of ambition and betrayal. The question wasn't if a civil war would erupt, but who would claim the ashes of his empire? Chapter 0, A Civil Galaxy War. The answer, at least initially, seemed clear. Earl Nivakara of House Elpul, a noble family fiercely loyal to Paul even amidst the swirling chaos of his rule, was declared the sole heir. Nivakara, a man of quiet strength and unwavering resolve, inherited not just a title, but the daunting task of uniting a shattered galaxy under a single banner. A banner now stained with the blood of 1,000 battles fought under Paul's banner. His claim, however, was instantly challenged. Duke Nosaj Baelora of House Baelora, a ruthless power broker who'd tasted power and craved more, saw the weakened Imperium as ripe for the taking. Alongside his ambitious and equally ruthless wife, Lady Eliza, he launched a brutal campaign to seize control. His armies a tide of bloodthirsty ambition, crashing against the shores of newly established order. Their claim, built on sheer force and a callous disregard for human life, threatened to unravel everything Paul had achieved. The heart of the conflict lay on Arrakis itself, the very planet that had forged Paul's destiny. Here, amidst the whispering dunes and the ever-present threat of sandworms, the forces of House Elpul rallied. Leading the charge were Noramak and Jaceleta, siblings forged in the fires of loyalty and hardened by the harsh realities of their world. Noramak, the elder, was a seasoned warrior, his strategies as sharp and precise as the blades he wielded. Jaceleta, younger but no less fierce, commanded a fleet of nimble skimmers, her tactical brilliance offsetting her lack of battlefield experience.
Sister,
Noremek said, his voice low and grim as they surveyed the battlefield from atop a towering sand dune. Below, the Fremen, their faces painted with war paint, stood shoulder to shoulder with the troops of House Elpul, a testament to the enduring legacy of Paul's alliance. The sun beat down on them, merciless and unforgiving, a fitting backdrop for the brutal conflict that lay ahead. Jaceleta nodded, her gaze sweeping across the vast expanse of shifting sands.
The Baeloras underestimate us, brother. They believe their numbers alone will secure victory. They forget the ferocity of the Fremen and the unwavering loyalty of House Elpul.
She pointed towards the horizon, where the first tendrils of Baelora's army could be seen, a dark stain spreading across the ochre landscape.
Their arrogance will be their undoing.
Noremak replied, drawing his sword. Its polished surface reflected the harsh sunlight, a chilling gleam in the eyes of the approaching enemy.
But let us not underestimate their strength. This will be a battle for the very soul of the Imperium.
The battle was a maelstrom of sand, fire, and steel. The Fremen's devastating attacks, combined with the disciplined might of House Elpul, initially held back the relentless advance of the Baeloras. Noremak's strategic brilliance shone through, his maneuvers disrupting the Baeloran formations and turning their superior numbers against them. Jaceleta, meanwhile, harassed their flanks with her swift skimmers, unleashing a hail of fire and precision strikes. Yet, as the sun began its descent, casting long, ominous shadows across the battlefield, a new threat emerged from the dunes. A contingent of heavily armored war machines, the likes of which had never been seen before, tipped the scales in the favor of the Baeloras. The battle hung precariously on a knife's edge, a desperate clash of wills and weapons under a blood-red sunset. The outcome, however, remained uncertain, lost in the swirling sands of Arrakis. The final clash left a cliffhanger of uncertainty. What was the new weapon, and what would be the fate of House Elpul and the Imperium itself? The future, like the vast desert, stretched before them, filled with both terrifying possibilities and the potential for a new dawn. Previously, where we left our epic heroes forces that combined of both Fremen and soldiers of House Elpul and the brave siblings, Noremak and his younger sister Jaceleta, they regrouped to the base camp of Earl Nivakara, their uncle, to think of a way to defeat the war machine of the tyrannical forces of Duke and Lady North, and to reclaim the planet for the glory of the Imperium that Paul has rebuilt in his lifetime. Now let's listen to the epic audio adventures of their story. Chapter 1. The War Wheel's Shadow. The desert wind howled a mournful dirge across the desolate plains of Arrakis, mirroring the turmoil brewing within the newly established Imperium. Earl Nivakara, a man etched with the harsh lines of desert life and political maneuvering, watched from his command tent as his forces prepared for war. His heirs, Noremak, a seasoned warrior hardened by years of service to Paul, and Jaceleta, his younger sister, a strategist with a mind as sharp as a desert knife, stood beside him. Their faces were grim, their resolve unyielding.
The Baeloras are amassing their forces near the Sietch Tabor.
Noremak reported, his voice low and gravelly.
Their war wheel, that monstrous machine, is operational.
The war wheel, a hulking behemoth of metal and fire, was the Baelora's trump card. A mobile fortress capable of leveling entire settlements. It represented everything House Elpul fought against: blind, brutal force, Duke Nosar, Baelora, a man consumed by ambition and fueled by the whispers of his equally ruthless wife, Lady Eliza, sought to crush House Elpul and claim the Imperium for themselves. Jaceleta tapped a finger against a holographic map, pinpointing enemy positions.
Their strategy is to overwhelm us with brute force. We need to exploit their weaknesses,
she declared, her voice calm yet resolute.
The sandworms. We need to use them.
Their only hope lay in the unpredictable power of the sandworms. Revered as Shai-Hulud by the Fremen, the native people of Arrakis, the Fremen. Loyal to Paul's memory and the promise of a better future under House Elpul, were their invaluable allies. The battle was set. The clash was earth-shattering. The war wheel rolled across the landscape, a storm of fire and destruction. House Baelora's forces, clad in heavy armor, advanced relentlessly. But against the combined might of the Fremen and House Elpul's warriors, expertly utilizing the treacherous terrain and their knowledge of the sandworms, the Baelor's advance stalled. The sand itself became a weapon, swallowing entire platoons in the shifting dunes. Then a monstrous form emerged from the sands, a Shai-Hulud, its colossal form dwarfing the war wheel itself. Noramak, seizing the opportunity, rode forth on his ornithopter, his eyes fixed on the monstrous worm. A terrifying, almost sacred encounter, with the potential to decide the fate of the war. Chapter 2: A Broken Alliance. The roar of the Shai-Hulud reverberated through the desert, a sound both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Noramak, close enough to feel the tremor in the earth, reached for his comm unit.
Jaceleta, report.
He yelled, struggling to be heard over the monstrous creature's roar.
The war wheel's defenses are failing.
Jaceleta's voice crackled through the comms.
They're pulling back, but there's something else.
A chilling silence followed, punctuated only by the wind and the rumbling of the earth. Then a new horrifying sound cut through the comms. The distinct whirring of another war wheel. This one, however, was different. Its metallic shell displaying the insignia of House Harkonnen. The former enemies of House Atreides, it seemed, had not faded into obscurity. Their motivations, however, remained shrouded in mystery. The battle had taken an unexpected turn. Victory for House Elpul was no longer guaranteed. The arrival of the Harkonnens meant treachery and shifting alliances. The fight for the Imperium was far from over. It had only just begun. The fate of the known universe hung precariously in the balance, and the future remained as unpredictable as the desert itself. Would Noramak and Jaceleta be able to adapt to this shocking turn of events? The fate of House Elpul, and perhaps the universe, rested on their shoulders. Chapter 3: The Ending of Old Wars. As the twin suns dipped below the jagged horizon of Arrakis, a palpable tension filled the air around the fortress known as Tigarax, once a proud symbol of power for the House of Baelora. It had been reduced to a mere target for the loyal Fremen and the forces of House Elpul. Earl Nivakara, a relentless strategist and uncle to young Noramak, and his sister Jaceleta, stood on a rocky outcrop surveying the scene of their impending battle.
Look at that fortress, Noramak. They think they're invincible behind those walls, but it is nothing against the desert's wrath and our resolve, Nivakara remarked, his voice a low growl in the stillness. Norimak nodded, determination etched on his young face.
We can take it, Uncle. The Fremen are ready. They've awaited this moment for too long. Jasaletta, her eyes wide with naivety yet blush with bravery, chimed in.
We must avenge our people. The Baelor's tyranny ends today. Meanwhile, in the stone-carved halls of Tigarax, the leaders Nosage and Eliza Baelora watched from high atop a balcony, confident yet uncertain. Nosage, the stoic duke, stroked his beard and frowned.
They come for us, my love, but let them come. The fortress is impenetrable.
Eliza, with her silver hair cascading over her shoulders, laughed lightly.
Freemen or not, they are mere shadows in the dunes. Anyone foolish enough to challenge us will meet their demise here.
As the night deepened, the time for the siege drew near. The loyal Fremen, cloaked in intricate desert garb, stealthily surrounded the fortress. Under the command of Nivakara, they began their advance, signaling a hidden group of elite fighters to commence the siege. Traps buried amidst the sands sprung to life as the sounds of battle echoed. Enraged cries meshed with the clinking of metal and the distant rumble of thumping anvil-like explosions. Nivakara roared orders, leading the charge with a fierce glimmer in his eyes.
Push forward, for honor, for Arrakis.
The Fremen surged forward, cutting through the morning mist with precision, like a tide of sand about to smother an intruder. As the attack intensified, Norimak and Jasaletta rallied a small band of Fremen soldiers, pushing toward the fortress gates. They deftly avoided the remnants of Baelora's automated defenses, engineered for an ill-fated attack.
Here!
Jasaletta shouted as she aimed her blaster toward the gate controls, her heart pounding with every pulse of adrenaline.
Norimak, help me with this.
After a few frantic moments, the gates swung wide, a creak that resonated like a death knell for the Baelora dynasty. Inside, chaos erupted as Fremen and Baelora soldiers clashed fiercely. In the heat of battle, Nivakara engaged directly with Nosar. Their swords met with a clatter, sparks scattering like stars.
Your reign is over, Nosage.
Nivakara proclaimed, parrying a thrust and countering with a swift riposte.
Fool, you think you can challenge the might of House Baelora?
Nosage growled. Their duel continued, a deadly dance steeped in personal vendetta. Meanwhile, Eliza stood firm, issuing orders to her remaining troops.
Block the Fremen. We must hold this position.
But one by one, her orders fell to chaos as the fortress walls crumbled beneath the weight of the assault. A tremor vibrated through Tigarax as the Fremen closed in, their tenacity on display. Jasaletta found herself face to face with Eliza.
This ends now. You will no longer rule with fear.
She launched herself at Eliza, who narrowly dodged but knew she was losing ground. Back in the courtyard, Nivakara seized an opportunity and disarmed Nosage, driving the Duke's sword into the ground.
Mercy is for the weak. You will leave Arrakis forever.
With every corner of Tigarax inundated with Fremen, their stubborn resolve found victory at dawn's break. The remaining Baelora soldiers scattered in fear, while Nosage and Eliza were captured, forever stripped of their power. As Nivakara stood tall over the remnants of House Baelora, looking into the eyes of his niece and nephew, Ye knew Arrakis had been freed. The fortress that had once held them captive now bore witness to their triumph.
We are free,
shouted Noramak, as cheers arose from the crowd of victorious Fremen.
Yes, finally, under the sun of our ancestors, free to shape our own destinies,
echoed Jasaletta, clutching her brother and uncle tightly. The battle had been won, but it was not just a battle. It was a turning point for Arrakis. The era of the Baelora had ended, and a new dawn emerged for its people. What lay ahead was an opportunity to rebuild, creating a new legacy amidst the sands that had once symbolized strife and power. This is the end of our epic audio adventures of Dune 2. I hope you all enjoy this wonderful tale of a fan-made fan faction story.